In part 2 of chapter 6, we're going to continue with fats and other lipids. In part 1, we discussed the various types of fats, and we also began to understand that the unhealthy fats can lead to atherosclerosis or cardiovascular disease. So if we think about risk factors, table 6.4 talks about some that we can't control and some that we can. We cannot control our family history or our age, but we can control whether or not we have high blood pressure, diabetes, elevated cholesterol, overweight and obese, if we're physically inactive, or if we smoke. So, these are things that we have to look at. Anything that we can change, we should try and change. Those that we can't change does not mean that that's a death sentence if family history is an issue. If you modify your lifestyle, you can reduce your risk. So when we're thinking about age, for men, anybody over 45 and women over age 55 has an increased risk for developing cardiovascular diseases, specifically heart disease or atherosclerosis. So genetics definitely play a role, but as we discussed, it's not a death sentence. Things you can change. You can do a lot with your diet. Just your diet alone will handle a lot of the modifiable risk factors, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and elevated blood cholesterol. The other things, smoking and physical inactivity, those you have to physically change. Of course, increase your activity and find methods that would help you stop smoking. You can look at your risk of developing atherosclerosis based on your lipid profile, which is a blood test that tests your good and bad cholesterol. You want your total cholesterol less than 200, LDL less than 100 is ideal, HDL greater than 60, and triglycerides less than 150. So this is table 6 gives you a classification. It lets you know what your desirable level is, what is considered borderline high, and what is high with regard to all of the blood lipid levels. C-reactive protein is another marker that they look for in the blood to see if you have a risk for cardiovascular disease. So you want to reduce your risk by obviously increasing your exercise. That always helps with any type of medical conditions and lowering the risk of developing them, and change your dietary habits. So you want to lower your saturated and trans fats and increase your mono and poly unsaturated fats. Those are your healthier fats, but even though they're healthier, you still want them in moderation. Saturated fat should be less than 10% and limit your trans fats as possible, as little as possible. You really should avoid them. Some of the healthier fats are your omega-3 and omega-6s, and omega-3 you can get from fatty fish such as salmon, also from canola oil, walnuts, and flaxseed, and it helps to reduce inflammation, also reduces blood clotting and blood pressure. It may help in your overall profile with your risk for heart disease. And omega-6, you can get that from animal fats and vegetable oils. So should you avoid eggs? Is it safe to eat butter? Will weight loss and exercise help? A lot of times eggs get a bad rap, but they do have a lot of healthy things as well. So, do not just eliminate them. Just monitor how much you're eating, so you don't want to eat too many. Stick margarine is more harmful to your health than actual natural butter because there's so many chemicals. So again, if you choose butter, just very small amounts. Achieving a healthy body weight will reduce your risk of developing cardiovascular diseases. So think about reducing your intake of fried foods. If you're going to have meat, you want to trim fat and choose lean cuts. Replace some fatty foods with fat-free alternatives, and avoid the high-fat sandwich meats, and also choose low-fat snacks and use less salad dressing on salads. Choose olive oil as opposed to a creamy ranch. Ways to lower your risk for cardiovascular diseases. If you look at table 6.7, it explains what you should do and what your benefits are. So example, I won't go through all of them, but an example, if you increase your physical activity, that raises your HDL or good cholesterol. You want to increase your soluble fiber. Fiber will also help with protecting against heart disease. Reduce any refined carbohydrates. Monitor your alcohol lose your excess body fat. One of the best things you could do is follow the Mediterranean diet, which in chapter 3 we covered that. So the Mediterranean diet really includes mainly fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and olive oil and very, very limited amount of low-fat type meats and more fish and whole grains. If you can't make it work with lifestyle changes, doctors may have to put you on a class of drugs known as statins, but they have a whole bunch of side effects. So you have to be very careful. You want to try doing lifestyle changes first before getting on any type of medications. Alcohol affects every cell of the body, and it can, in excess can damage every organ system, including the heart. So you need to be very careful about your intake. Moderation is key. And that's it for chapter 6 on fats. The key to remember is that not all fat is created equal. There are some good varieties of fat, and you should be choosing those. Read your chapter in its entirety, as this is just a brief overview, and you will understand the ways that you should manage fat intake in your diet.